Hi guys, today I'll continue to discuss the super impressive Egyptian pyramids. In this episode, I focus on the interior structures of the pyramids. In previous videos, I proposed the theory that the Giza complex could be the remnants of a previous, highly advanced civilization. The tool marks at the subterranean chamber of the Great Pyramid, multiple underground shafts, and some megaliths near the Giza pyramids are all very similar. They resemble modern mining machine marks. It's conceivable there was a fundamental connection between the Great Pyramids and the underground mining system. The pyramids are almost completely solid structures built with millions of tons of blocks. From a construction point of view, it doesn't make sense to use so much building material to construct these enormous solid pyramids with so little usable interior space, unless the goal was to pack as much material as possible. These reasons lead to my theory that if the shafts were excavated for mining, then the pyramids might be carefully designed and supremely structured, cemented mine tailing and waste rock storage piles. I received many comments asking me why mine waste storage would have interior structures and built with such precision like what we see inside the Great Pyramid. Well, that's a very good question. Let's talk about it now. The Great Pyramid has the most elaborate interior system, but it's still predominantly solid, since its interior openings only take about 0.014% of the entire volume. The Great Pyramid is the only one with connecting above and underground chambers and passageways, while the other pyramids just have chambers at the bottom of the pyramids. Why does the Great Pyramid have such a different internal system? What purpose did it serve? The complex internal structure of the Great Pyramid has prompted a lot of interest, wherein numerous theories have developed. But what about the other pyramids in Abu Sir, Dashra, and Saqqara, or even the ones standing next to the Great Pyramid on the Giza Plateau? Aren't they just as intriguing? Why are the other pyramids neglected? For example, researchers have proposed that the air shaft of the Great Pyramid could be star shafts or have other significant meanings. Small robots were sent into these shafts for investigations. However, do you know that in the chambers of the Khafre Pyramid, there are also small rectangular niches that could be the so-called air shafts too? No one really talks about that, and these niches are never investigated. Why is that? If we want to understand the purpose of these pyramids, we can't single out just one pyramid, because this kind of tunnel vision can lead us into speculation and mysticism. We need to consider and discuss all the big pyramids in Egypt as a related group. There must be an intrinsic connection among these massive structures. This is why when I studied the internal system of the Great Pyramid, I compared it to other Egyptian pyramids. What I've found is that, in general, all the other pyramids have relatively similar interior designs, which consist of descending pathways going down to underground chambers at the bottom of each pyramid. On the other hand, the Great Pyramid is indeed unique. When discussing the interior system of the Great Pyramid, most concentrate on the king's and queen's chambers. They are the focal points which made the Great Pyramid stand alone from the rest of the pyramids. But there is so much more to this story. Here I want to provide a different angle and point out a few elements inside the Great Pyramid that are not emphasized enough, yet could be critical to our search of the pyramid's purposes. First are the granite plugs. There are 3 big granite plugs blocking the entrance to the first ascending passageway, which leads to the 2 upper chambers. These plugs are still there today. According to the ancient Greek scholar Strabo, people from 2,000 years ago already knew about the entrance of the pyramid and explored its interior. Strabo only documented the descending passageway and the subterranean chamber because people back then didn't know there were chambers above ground. It wasn't until 820 AD, when Mahmud and his crew forced their way into the Great Pyramid, somehow circumvented the granite plugs, and found the joint of the ascending and descending passages, That's when the two upper chambers and the grand gallery were discovered. The three granite plugs fit the ascending passage tightly and are believed to have been placed by the original builders. They are still in position today and probably will be there for the longest time, since it's physically impossible to take them out through the narrow passageway. So here is the question. Why would the original builders seal the only passage to the upper chambers with plugs? Was it to protect valuable items inside the chambers, especially the sarcophagus in the king's chamber? We have to keep in mind that other pyramids also have sarcophagi and chambers, and their passages are not blocked by plugs. Then why block it at all? Was it because the ancient architects changed the design after constructing the chambers? The thing is, if we cover up the passage that got blocked off, the interior of the Great Pyramid is now close to the other pyramids, a descending passage going down to subterranean chambers, which are located underneath the center of the pyramid. Is it possible that other pyramids also have yet to be discovered stone plugs blocking secret passages and chambers? Perhaps, but so far none have been found after thousands of years of digging and searching. Did blocking off the upper chambers make a huge difference to the internal system? Maybe not, because even with the ascending passage blocked, the upper chambers are still connected to lower interior openings through the well shaft. This well shaft is the second element I want to bring to your attention. It's a long, steep, almost vertical shaft, merely 30 centimeters, less than a foot in diameter. This shaft is definitely utilitarian since a person cannot get in, and its construction must have been quite difficult. Being the only connection between the upper and lower chambers, the well shaft must have played an important role in the pyramid's interior system. Moreover, what purposes did upper chambers serve, and how were they related to the well shaft and the underground chamber? In order to study this, I think it will be helpful to find comparable structures which share common features with the Great Pyramid. The first one is what I've been talking about in prior videos: mine waste storage such as waste rock piles and dry stack tailing mounds. Mine waste storage piles share multiple similarities with the pyramids. For instance, the triangular shapes, the scale of work, the solid feature, and the impermeable and buttress-like exterior layers, which are similar to the casing stones on the pyramids. This exterior layer is important because covered waste rock piles would produce much less acid mine drainage. When the water and air seep through the mine waste, this process would produce acid mine drainage. Acid mine drainage is a global crisis with its long-term detrimental effects to our groundwater and the environment. We can try to minimize the amount of air and water that gets into the mine waste piles, but no matter what, they will find a way in. Once they're in the pile, then what can we do? Please take a look at the slack heap design and pay attention to the internal drainage channels. Like in a typical stormwater drainage plan, channels are used to collect and direct seepage water to the bottom of the waste pile to drain it out. This would eliminate the water being in contact with mine waste, therefore minimize acid mine drainage. Don't these angled channels look like the air shafts of the Great Pyramid? What if the air shafts were perforated drain channels? They do look like today's trench drains, don't they? Please keep this in mind as I will return to it later. Although there are quite some similarities between our current mine waste piles and the pyramids, there is a major difference. Today's waste rock and tailing piles are built with loose waste rocks and dry tailings, which are hauled and dumped on the ground, compacted, and then covered. These mine waste materials are granular and not structured. Problems of such waste storage have been studied for decades by professionals. Recently, there is a new concept of cemented tailings that could create concrete blocks that are made from mine waste. With this new concept, the mine waste can be solidified into concrete blocks, and if we stack these blocks up to its most stable form, it would look like a pyramid. According to multiple scientific papers of various material analyses, the Egyptian pyramid blocks and their casing stones could be a form of concrete, which I have talked about in an earlier video. So, if the pyramids were some kind of advanced mine waste storage built with waste rock concrete blocks, do such waste piles need to have highly precise internal spaces like the king's chamber? Cemented tailing storage is a new idea and hasn't been implemented yet. But there is a type of modern structure that could help us better understand the pyramids, a gravity dam. A gravity dam is constructed from concrete, like the pyramid blocks. Gravity dams are comparable in size and weight with the pyramids because they are massive and could be over 100 meters tall. Gravity dams are almost completely solid and are built to be extremely stable and long-lasting, like the pyramids. The difference is that gravity dams are designed to hold back water and be resistant to the horizontal pressure of the water. Maybe that's why gravity dams are shaped like a pyramid cut in half. When looking at the cross-sections of typical gravity dams, we can see that these dams have internal openings, such as drainage and inspection galleries and air vents. Galleries in dams perform multiple functions, such as collecting water drainage or seepage in the dam, providing access for inspection purposes, and for drilling foundation drain holes. Foundation drain holes. Does that remind you of the narrow, long, almost vertical well shaft of the Great Pyramid? Let me lay this out. Not only do the well shaft resemble the foundation drain holes in gravity dams, the king's and queen's chambers are located in areas that could be the dam inspection and drainage galleries, and the descending passage is close to the dam ventilation pipe or air vent. Remember I talked about how the air shafts are placed and shaped like drainage channels. They're angled towards the king's and queen's chambers, which means the seepage water they collected would be drained into the two chambers, and then go through the well shaft to the underground. For that reason, blocking the ascending passage with granite plugs would have made its drainage flow more effective. Maybe the ascending passage was used to convey building materials to the chambers at the beginning of the construction, but was no longer needed once the chambers were completed. Here are some photos of the galleries inside gravity dams. I hope you noticed that galleries in gravity dams usually have arched ceilings in order to be structurally sound, similar to the gable ceilings in the Queen's chamber and the relieving roof above the King's chamber. Don't these interior dam galleries look similar to the Great Pyramid's passageways and the Grand Gallery? Another point worth mentioning is that openings such as the drainage galleries can weaken the overall strength of dams. Hence, they are used judiciously and built with great accuracy. This characteristic is also shared with the interior structure of the Great Pyramid. After all, any openings inside the pyramid are under the immense weight and pressure of the pyramid blocks piled on top. To maintain the static and dynamic load-bearing ability, it's absolutely crucial to construct the open areas with great precision in either gravity dams or the pyramids. Okay, now we know the shared physical features between the pyramids and the mine waste piles. The internal slag heap drainage channels resemble the pyramid's air shafts. Several very interesting similarities exist between the interior system of the Great Pyramid and gravity dams. Therefore, can I reasonably assume that the pyramids were built with stacked up cemented mine waste blocks, covered with high-quality casing stones to minimize water seepage, and be equipped with an internal drainage and possible water treatment system to direct the seepage water to drain out at the bottom of the pyramid? If so, this could also explain the great mystery of the salt incrustation inside the Queen's chamber. The first modern researchers found over an inch thick of hard salt on the walls of the Queen's chamber. The salt was also present in the relieving chambers, along the horizontal passage, the ascending passage, and in the lower portion of the Grand Gallery. We can see such salt deposits in some photos of the King's chamber as well. How did salt build up on these walls? This is a common phenomenon called efflorescence. Efflorescence is a white, powdery deposit of water-soluble salts left on the masonry surface as the water evaporates. Such salt deposits tend to appear on stone, concrete, and bricks. The moisture usually comes from inside the stone and brings salt and minerals to the surface. The thick layer of salt inside the chambers and passages indicate there had been prolonged period of moisture accumulation. Where did the moisture come from? Well, being the only openings in the center of an enormous solid structure, it's natural for water to have accumulated in the chambers, and it could be what the chambers were designed for. Some have speculated that moisture-caused efflorescence salt deposits came from the biblical flood or the underground aquifer, or when the pyramid acted as a hydraulic ram pump. The queen's chamber is about 120 meters above sea level. If there was a flood going as high up as the queen's chamber, then it would have been an astronomical flood, and we should have seen efflorescence in more places, such as the descending passage. But there are no such records or evidence today. As for the hydraulic ram theory, for a hydraulic ram pump to function, there needs to be a water tank at the height of the pyramid's entry so water can flow in due to gravity, and then picks up speed and kinetic energy at the underground chamber to pump water up through the well shaft. We don't see such an exterior water tank on the Giza Plateau. Plus, what's the point of such a maneuver? Pumping water into the upper chambers would serve what purpose? Why would a highly sophisticated culture spend so much time and labor to build a gigantic, almost solid pyramid to pump water into its interior chambers and shafts? Therefore, it's unlikely that the thick efflorescent salt came from the biblical flood or a hydraulic ram, and thus a drainage system inside a mine waste storage might be the reason of such salt deposits. I know you might ask, if the Great Pyramid was a mine waste storage site, and if its interior structure was meant to be a drainage system, then why don't the other pyramids share the same features? Instead, the other pyramids have a relatively similar design of a descending passage going down to the center subterranean chambers. This shared feature shows up in all the pyramids, therefore it could be the most important aspect to study if we want to understand the pyramids. But people don't really pay much attention to the underground chambers, not even the one in the Great Pyramid. Have you ever wondered why there is so much rubble and unfinished rocks in Great Pyramid's subterranean chamber? Wind can blow this much debris through the long, small passage. Why would the pyramid builders leave such a mess in this chamber? Or was it part of their design? Have you wondered why all the pyramids have these long descending passages that are so low, less than 4 feet? People have to be uncomfortably bent to walk through them. Even the galleries inside today's gravity dams are of human height, because people need to get in and out to do inspection or maintenance work. The pyramid paths to underground chambers are difficult and treacherous to walk already. Can you imagine the struggle to carry equipment down there? When the pyramids were covered with dense casing stones, was the air inside the underground chambers safe to breathe? Were these passageways ever meant for humans? If they were not designed for humans entering the pyramids, then what purpose could it have served? I have a tentative theory to potentially answer these questions, which might also explain some bizarre interior designs of other big pyramids, such as the chambers in the Bent and Red pyramids. This and more I'll present to you in my next video. If you have any insights, please leave me a comment. If you like my video, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe. Don't forget to hit the bell button so you'll be notified when I upload new videos. If you want to support me, my Patreon link is below. I have a wide range of topics that I want to share with you. This is Curious Being. I'm Tina. Thanks for watching and see you next time.